Welcome to this week's episode of the Firewire Show. Do not go anywhere because we're going to be talking about, no, not the Canon M50. Today we're going to give you some video tips that will help you improve your video or just give you some things to think about when recording your video. If that sounds interesting to you, I'm Dave from TVR Creators and I make weekly content on the best cameras for creators and so much more. So if that sounds interesting to you, like and subscribe. So in today's video, I just happen to be using the Canon M50 purely because it's one of my favorite cameras and I like to talk about it. But this isn't actually about this camera. Like I just said, it's basically I just want to share some little cool things with you, some little tips to think about when recording yourself. So for most of us creators or YouTubers or whatever you call us this day of the week, and I hope you've had a great week, by the way. I just want to say now over, this time of the video being made, over 900 subscribers, so thank you. I just want you to think of a few things. So one thing I would highly recommend when buying the camera, or if you're using your phone or whatever you're using to record, obviously your phone's a little bit different, but with cameras definitely, is make sure you've got a camera with a flip screen. So obviously a lot of cameras will have, a touch screen on the back nowadays. That's fairly standard, isn't it, with a lot of cameras. But it's just really cool to have one that flips screen. Now with the M50, it does turn to the side, and there are cameras that turn to the side and some that flip upwards or whichever, and whatever you prefer. And what I like about this is it does face you like that, and this particular camera does have a very easy to use touchscreen. And if you are interested in the M50, if you haven't already got one, go and check it out in the link below. So there's a thing to think about them. It's something easy to use. Have a camera that's not too heavy. For me personally, though, I appreciate there are those of you that prefer bigger cameras for whatever reason. This is a mirrorless camera, hence why it's smaller. And having a touch screen or having a screen that faces towards you like that just makes recording so much easier. So when you're recording like this and you're giving people value when you're doing your head videos, you're like, yeah, all that sort of thing. And you can see what you're recording. Now, a little power tip, make sure you look at the lens because that's where people are. And it's very annoying when, and I've done it in the past, especially when I first started doing this, is you look at the screen and you will get comments from your viewers going, Dave, you're not looking at the camera, you're looking the wrong way. And it's very off-putting for the viewers. So sort of bear that sort of thing in mind when recording your video. So that's something to think about. Perhaps when you're buying a camera, you might want to consider the lens. Now, a lot of cameras do come with good kit lenses, and another reason why I like the M50, I know I'm saying it, but with whatever camera you get, just make sure it's got a nice wide-angle lens. Now, this one is a 15 to 45mm. Now, if you haven't got that and it's maybe an 18 or 24 or higher, I would highly recommend for recording head videos, get like an 18 or less. So this one is a 15. If you can get a 12 or 13, even better. And the reason I say that, gives you a nice wide shot. So when you're recording quite close, you can have the camera closer to you, especially if you're recording out indoors even. And it just gives you that nice natural look. And it just looks more professional, looks more friendly, and you don't feel like you're literally touching the lens. It just looks better all round. And going on from that, I would give a nice little power tip of perhaps having the camera just slightly above your eye line. It just makes you look more pleasant. I don't know. It just looks better. It's like when you do a selfie. It always looks better than looking at your big double chin like I've got. Oh no, I'm only messing. But that's something to bear in mind when you're recording your video. Something I would highly recommend, if you can't see it already, is a tripod. That's my favourite tripod that I use when I do my head videos. You don't have to get that one. You can get, I'm using a cheap one to hold this camera at the moment, and you can get yourself a cheap one on online or at your local tech store. And what's really cool about that is, I've said this in previous videos, but for those of you that are new here, I often say a tripod is basically your best friend. Because let's face it, for most of us creators, especially in the early days, you're not necessarily going to have a second or third person holding the camera for you. So you're having a tripod is something I learned very early on is a must-have. So when you've got your camera, even if you're using your phone, get yourself a tripod. And if you are using a phone, you can, hang on, there it is, you can use one of those phone grips, if you will, and that will just grip in your phone, and it's very good for if you're doing Insta Reels or if you're doing shorts, that sort of thing. And it's really handy to have something like that. I just call it a phone grip. It comes with most tripods, especially the more expensive ones. And when I mean expensive, I'm only talking 40, 50 pounds or dollars. I'm not saying you have to spend thousands on the tripod. Just something to think about. And it's massively important to have it, because you just stick your camera on there, you put the camera where you want it, and off you go. And going along those lines then, you want to think about audio, which is 50% of your video. This particular camera does have a mic jack. Bear in mind, cameras with mic jacks do tend to be more expensive because they have more features and blah, 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 blah. So you wouldn't get a mic jacks on example, say the 2000D for example, but you would on the M50 or the new R10 or even a potential R50, etc. And obviously, but they are more expensive and they do have better sensors and all the rest of it. But I would massively recommend saving up for a more expensive camera that does have a mic jack. Just check it. It should say in the options, you know, in the descriptions of when you buy a camera, or just ask. And 50% of your video is audio. So if you haven't got the best video for whatever reason, or you haven't quite lit it right, audio is key. And obviously a lot of cameras do have internal microphones, and they're perfectly all right, and you know, perfectly fine, especially if you're recording indoors. But for those of you that want to experiment, you want to record outside, I highly recommend a microphone. Let's see if I can find one on the cuff. There it is, there it is. So you just want to attach, I'm just going to put the cap on the lens here, purely because I just want to protect the lens. And if those of you that are getting value from this video, don't forget to smash the like button and consider subscribing. So you just want to get your microphone, you want to attach it to the top, you just plug it in and off you go, and you're ready to go. And it just, make sure you got a nice sponge on it, so that basically stops the wind, so you don't get that annoying noise when you're recording outside from the wind. So you should get really nice audio, very important, and you can get a much bigger microphone. This is known as a shotgun microphone, and that will produce really nice audio. Or you can get a clip-on mic that also connects to the camera, and you can clip it on you. And if you don't want the cable, it does cost a bit more, but you can get wireless clip-on mics, and that's something I would highly recommend. Just put it up there a minute. Now, something else I would massively recommend is a spare battery, which is very cheap to get. Make sure you've got 2 or 3, and I tend to have on a rolling charge, so there's always at least one that's charged. And when you're filming out about, and a little power tip, turn off the camera when you're not recording, just makes the battery last longer. I know it might sound obvious, but these little things hopefully might help some of you. And also get a nice SD card, get like the extreme one, which is the gold one basically. And you don't need any more than 3264. If you want 128 gig or 256 gig or whatever you want to get whatever you want. But I'm just saying, you don't have to spend hundreds of pounds on an SD card. 32 or 64 gig is more than enough for most of the people, you know, if you just record a bit of video and doing some photos. Do a big shout out if you're using a GoPro at the moment, which, you know, someone very special to me is using at the minute. Just thought I'd throw that in there. Anyway, so keeping it professional, Dave. And obviously to change your lens, you know, you can do that. Have different lenses. That's not something you have to do. But I'd recommend down the road, maybe long term, look at different lenses depending on the situation. And that's a nice thing about having a proper camera. You can interchangeable the lenses and mix it up a bit depending on the situation. And then lighting, obviously if you're outside, consider the golden hour, you know, early in the morning or sunset. That gives really nice light for certain videos, or just daylight in general, obviously a nice sunny day. And just experiment. You'll tend to find if the light is behind your head that it will go all dark unless you're looking for that type of shot. But if you want a nice sort of, you know, even light like I've got at the moment, you might want to have the sun at the side of you, or perhaps sort of you know, in front of you, that sort of thing, and then the camera has the light behind it, and that should give a nice shot. And if you're recording indoors, I'm using a floodlight at the moment, which is actually reflecting off a white wall, which gives this nice natural light colour. But obviously, you know, if you're wearing glasses, have the light a bit like the camera earlier, have the light above your eye line, which is very important. if you want nice natural light and you don't want annoying reflecting. Hopefully I've got it right today, which I don't always. But I highly recommend having the light above your eye level so you don't get that annoying reflection on your glasses if you wear glasses. If you don't worry about it. You can have the light shining in your face if you want. But I highly recommend having one sort of diagonally from here, maybe one from here. You might want to experiment, have one behind, giving you some depth. As you see, I've got some lights in the background. It just sort of mixes it up a bit, makes it more interesting. And I am looking at some point changing my background. But at the moment, I've just got, because this room is quite small, my studio is quite small, I've just got one massive floodlight, and that seems to do this shot very nicely. So these are just some of the things to think about when filming your video. Like I said, if you're getting value, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching. And I'm going to share with you 2 end cards that are going to give you even more value. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'm Dave from TVR Creators, and I'll see you in the next video because you guys rock.